Okay, let's get started. I'm Ken Bald, for those of you who may not know me, but I think everybody here knows me, except a few new people. I've been around 8 years, something like that. Too long. No, that's good. Anyway, it's really been an enjoyable and a quick 8 years. I'm going to do some demoing back there, but first I'm going to talk a little bit about what this is all about. Uh, in 22, I went to a demonstration by John Beaver. I think it was 22, could have been 21. But anyway, I went over to Mark Adams School and took a 5-day, week-long class on turning wave bowls. And I probably should have brought some of the simpler ones that we did. We started out making a single wave in a square block. You didn't need a fixture. And you could, if you take a block, well, let's just say you got a 5x5 piece of ash or something like that, 3 inches thick, you can draw your radius on there, go to the bandsaw, and be careful and follow the line, saw that off, and put your piece of veneer in it, and you'll come up with a single wave bowl. If you want to put two waves in, turn it 90 degrees and do it again. And then you'd have two waves in it. And so it is possible to make a wave bowl without the work of building a fixture. Uh, and I tell you up front, if you want a fixture, you go to John Beaver, just Google John Beaver Woodworking, and he sells you the plans. I am not allowed to, I have his permission to demonstrate, but I am not allowed to give out the plans for the fixture. You have to pay, I think it's $15. Is that what you had to pay, Steve? 15? $15 for the plans, and they're pretty much self-explanatory. Uh, and if you've bought the plans, I'll help you. But I can't do it without, you buying the plans for $15. All right. I brought these up here. If you want to pass them around, you can, or come up afterwards and look at them. Those are just some of the examples. I've made probably a dozen or more of these bowls. I've sold about half of them. And, I take what would say a $40 or $50, like that walnut or ginkgo bowl, and put the waves in it, and I'll get 150 for them. And I'm not sure that it pays $10 an hour to do that, but I have fun doing it. So it's a really fun project to do. So let's get started. What I do is pre-turn a bowl. All right, you can see it. All right, so this is a little smaller than I normally do, but I had this laying there, and I thought, well, I'll make this into a little wave bowl. So what I'm going to do is first you make you a couple blocks of wood that'll fit in there like this, and we're going to glue that in there with hot glue. So if I can keep from burning myself, we'll glue them in there. That's a little hot. I like to get them down flush, but that'll be all right. I'll sand that off when I really get ready to turn it. But put these in here opposite one another. Well, I've got that backwards. There you go. Okay, now we'll put lots more glue on the sides of it so it makes sure you got enough strength there that they don't get knocked off while we're sawing and whatnot. Um, we we want to have that glued on there hard and good enough so it won't come off while we're doing our sawing, but yet we want to remove that before we actually start turning. When I was at Mark Adams School, I learned the lesson the hard way, and John said, "Oh, you just put it in the lathe and start turning on it." And I thought, "Oh, that'll just turn off." And instead of turning these off, I broke the tang off. So now I had to figure out how to start over on that. But so now when that's dry, warm, don't take long for that to cool. We'd put it in the chuck. You don't have to, but I find it easier to stay straight. You've got that in the chuck, and then I take a drill and I set my battery operated drill. I can kind of stay straight and drill a hole in it here and here. So that our next step then is that we'll end up, let me unplug this. All right, so now we've got that all glued up, drilled holes so dowel pins can go in it so we can line it back up. And so now we've got to saw it off. So what we're going to do let's do it this way. There. All right. This is going to be a 7-inch bowl. So the radius that we're going to saw that on is 7 inches. That's how all of these radiuses are all determined by the diameter in which you're going to turn. So that's one of the first things you got to decide. And so you then, I have this, maybe I should hold that up. This board has got a series of holes in it every ½ inch, and you can adjust where this pivot point is. So to get a 7-inch radius, I know that the edge of this bowl, it comes, because of this cleat that's in here, goes into my saw. It's made just for my 14BX bandsaw. And this edge here, if that's flush with the back side of the table, the leading edge of the bandsaw blade is in the center of that line of bolts. So when you come in, you're cutting on a true arc. So now we have, this is set 7 inches back from where the blade would be. And so you want to decide by looking at the grain where you want that radius to be. This one here. I like to look at the way the grain is running and put my high point of my first radius kind of right where the pith would have been if you visualize where it would be looking at the grain. So you're cutting, and that's the way I got that approximately on there now. And then you would just visualize having that bandsaw blade here. You guys all visualize the bandsaw out here? We're gonna set this, slide this up until we've got it to the depth that we want this to be. I got a scale over here. What you might do is come up here and slide it up to where you touch the blade and out and get yourself a reading. So then when you come over and say, okay, I want 3/8 of an inch below the edge, slide it up 3/8 of an inch, lock it down. And this is clamped. I put a clamp on these two corners onto my bandsaw table so it won't go anywhere. And so we very carefully swing that radius and saw that off. Do not stop. I'm sure you saw it on a piece of wood and you stop, the blade will sit there and wobble and cut you a little kerf. You'll see that on that bowl if you let it stop while you're making that cut. Yes?
You don't have to have those two wood blocks dead horizontal?
No, you put them anywhere you want. Sometimes where I just glued this one, when I put this in the chuck, it's going to be up and down. So it's going to be three of them because of the way the grain is laid out here on this piece of wood. But I don't always do that. I just put them opposite of one another, and then I usually will take a Sharpie and put a black mark here, and there'll be a black mark on the inside here, so I don't come along now and try to put it on the wrong way. On this case, it would go on, but the dowels probably wouldn't line up because I just freehanded those in there. Yes, Steve.
What size blade and how many teeth?
I've used. John always uses a 1/4 inch, 12, 14, something like that. So you get a smooth cut. You don't want a rough and jagged cut. You want to, when you start cutting, you want to just keep it steady till you get. And what I have found is when I hit these blocks of wood, sometimes the blade notices it's cutting more, and I've gotten some vibration from that. If you look at these and feel this, it's got some vibration marks on it from where when it cut through this particular piece of wood. I get lazy sometimes. I don't like changing bandsaw blades, and I think when I saw this one, and I don't know about that one, I used a 3/8 3-tooth. I shouldn't have used a 3-tooth, but that Laguna saw runs pretty fast, and I thought, I can get by with that 3-tooth, and it did, but it's not as smooth as it really ought to be. Yes. Yeah.
Do you look for bandsaw blades with the most teeth per inch for this?
No, not necessarily. Like I say, this was cut with 3, but I would recommend anywhere from 10, 12, 14, somewhere in that neighborhood. And 1/4, 3/8. 3/8, you're not cutting, 3/8 would work real well because you're not cutting a sharp radius. These blocks that I just glued in here this afternoon before I came, I cut those with a 1/2 inch blade that was in the saw. I ain't changing blade to cut them 2 little blocks, so you just keep working at it and you can do it. But here, and the other thing is, whatever you take out is what you need to put into it. And I know some of you have done the Celtic knot, right? You've done the Celtic knot. When you do a Celtic knot, whatever your kerf is, your saw blade, that's what kind of thickness, approximately what thickness that wood should be. If you normally on that you'll cut that with a table saw maybe, and so if you're doing that, you got to put in the 1/8 or what would it be? Maybe a 7/32. No, I'm going backwards. 5/32. What would be the No, not 5. I'm going the wrong direction here. Anyway, an 1/8 is 4/30. So there's a 3/32 table saw blade out there, so you can get a narrower kerf, but blades don't hold up as good. But whatever you cut out is what you need to put in, and that's why this right here is a full 16th of an inch. You know, it's hard to find 16th of an inch veneer. I have used 40 thousandths veneer. Like when I do a Celtic knot, last year before last, I made Celtic knot Christmas ornaments. And I sawed all of those on the bandsaw. And the bandsaw kerf is about 45, 50 thousandths. And I got away with gluing 2 pieces of 20 thousandths thick walnut veneer in that slot. But and then you look at if you look at these, they all, well, the one don't look at that ginkgo real close. You'll see some air in it. But you have to take out what you are going to put in. I did. It was not easy. Here's a piece. It's maybe 20,000 thick. That's what come out of there with 2 passes in that piece of veneer. I got the rest of the pieces there. But that's when I realized that big bowl is hanging out here. And this fixture just wasn't solid enough to handle that. And the other thing I've done is put a block of wood under here. Try to support that so it doesn't, because there's a lot of pressure on that with that saw blade wanting to tilt that. I'm sure if you took the shop teacher told you never cut anything round in a bandsaw. It'll get away from you. You're going to tear up your fingers or no telling what. But so putting a support under here is good. But what I did, I've made a new board now that the board comes out here further so that I can keep a little pressure on this side and just got a little bit better control out of it. So I haven't tried. That's the only bowl I've made where I cut it off twice. I made that veneer out of a piece of 1x12 walnut that I had and planed it as thin as I could get. My planer would go, and then I run it through a drum sander, and it's 1/8 of an inch. So with the kerf being about 45 thousandths, so you do that twice, you're at 90 thousandths, and 35 thousandths is what I wanted to let be out there, but it's not perfect. But if, like I say, with a keen eye, you can see my errors on that bull. I shouldn't point that out, but as you asked earlier about mistakes, I'll tell my mistake there, is that I just didn't have enough control of this rocking as I sawed through it. My support wasn't good enough, and the directions to build this fixture from John Beaver says to leave this an inch away from your blade. That's a mistake. I just made one for Steve back here, and I made his 1/8 of an inch from the blade, something like that, and so that he's got room to have a support right up to where he's cutting when he cuts his bowl. And his wife has made her first wave bowl off a John Beaver fixture. They bought the design from John Beaver.
Ken?
Do what?
Okay, now you can hear me. What did you do about the fact that one wasn't? I mean, you had a mistake that you did. What are some options for getting more stability on that?
Well, that's what I'm telling you. I beefed up my plate, my bottom baseboard, and I got it right up to within about 1/8 of an inch of the blade, so that now I can keep support right up to the area where I'm cutting. I can sand a block to where it's just fits under there, and scoot it around with me, and hopefully not have my fingers next to the blade while I'm, safety, right, Tom? So I have had, this finger is numb because it's been cut multiple times by the bandsaw. I guess it sticks out further than the rest. And, I've sawed to the bone twice, but don't do that. That ain't fun. So, all right. Any other questions at this point? So, we're this veneer. Um, if you go to Pinckneyville, Illinois, on the third Saturday in August, you can get all of this veneer you want. I think they've been doing it for several years at the Thrasherman's annual steam and tractor pull and Thrasherman's deal. They have a veneer machine they run with a steam engine, and they put a log in there about 42 inches wide and 2 foot in diameter. And this is poplar, I think. No, not poplar. Sycamore. This is sycamore. And they're just peeling it off, in big sheets. So 2 years ago I was there and I thought, hey, that might work. And so I brought a handful home, and I used that all up. And so this past August, I took a friend with me, and I says, I don't have a side by side to go in there, and these grounds are, I guess, 40, 60 acres of demonstrations of stuff going on, tractor pulls and whatnot. I said, we're going to carry out as much of this veneer as we can. And so we literally carried out as much as we could. So I didn't want to rent a golf cart for $80. But anyway, they've had that there for several years, and I assume they'll continue to demonstrate making that veneer. So I think it works pretty good. So, okay. So that's ready to glue up. I'm sorry? It's the Southern Illinois Thrashermen's Association in the third weekend in August in Pinckneyville, Illinois. So we then take this. Smallest wrench I could find. Okay. I never take it out of the chuck so that don't have to worry about. This is a Vic Mark chuck, and it will repeat pretty good, but still, I don't want to. Take the chance of. So now we're using the tailstock and the lathe as a clamping device. Smear glue on that. Stay away from your dowel holes because you really don't want to glue the dowels into there. Put glue on here, glue around there, get it all glued. I usually put too much glue on; it runs all over the place. But I don't want it to come apart. And since this was turned, and I rolled it up probably in 8 foot long sheets, it's got a natural curve to it. But it's real easy to bend in a microwave. That was 1/8 inch thick walnut board, or veneer by the time I got it to that thickness. I took a hand towel, soaked it in warm water, wrapped around that piece of veneer, put it in my microwave for about a minute and 20 seconds. And when I brought it out of there, I could just bend it right to the shape. So it was. No, I use Tight Bond 2. So we got it all glued up. We're ready now to glue it together. I'll get it. You're younger than me. You can crawl under there. All right, thank you. Don't hit your head. You're going to hurt the table. You all right, Don? All right. I have a board. I have some different diameters of boards with some holes to clear these dowels, and I put my pressure on there. Sometimes I'll put an extra board on it so I get plenty of pressure, but that's basically with a flat board. You want to put pressure on that whole thing, so so that leave it set for 45 minutes to an hour, and you can take it apart. And most of those I'll glue maybe 3. If I want to have more like that one has 9, that took me 2 days to glue that up. But uh, 45 minutes on Tight Bond 2. I find Tight Bond 2 to just works good for everything. If I was making a cutting board, I'd use Tight Bond 3, just because some women will, or maybe the husbands, I should say, stick the cutting board in the dishwasher, and Tight Bond 3 will actually hold up in the dishwasher if you don't do it too often. But I don't recommend that. Yes. What? Yeah, what I do now, okay, this is going to be number 1 glue up. All right. So I got that all glued up. It's dry. Now here I did it a little bit different. I didn't glue the blocks in. Here's our 3rd glue up. Each time I glue that up, I take my skew and I start on the edge, put a face shield on because these are going to go flying. But I'll take my skew and the corner of the skew and peel that off so that you got a better idea where your next cut's going to be. And then I do the same thing in here. On this one, let me turn that. Here, I used a block of wood I got from Tom Zeller. It's a piece of your wood here. And so it was big enough, I just cut this out to get rid of some of the wood and left it where I could put my dowel holes right in there. If you're starting from a dry piece of wood, why not do it this way? Why go through the process of gluing blocks in and then, you can, now here, again, I'll cut that out and go to my next turn. Okay? Yes, Don?
When you're starting the cut, when you're starting your pivot, of course there's a lot of wood holding the bowl together.
Yes.
When you get over to the end, do you put something in the already cut through hole to stabilize it?
No, I just wrap my hand around her and hang on to that end so it don't go flying. You don't want it to drop on the floor and maybe break. So just the rule, I'm sure most of you may know, but maybe not know him by name, Mr. Snodgrass. You guys know a guy by the name of Snod? I think am I saying that right, Charlie? Snodgrass? He's the bandsaw wizard. He used to come to Collinsville and saw out little reindeer. Well, over the years, he and I have become friends, and he's taught me how to make reindeer, but as long as I don't sell them, he'll let me make reindeer. And so anyway, his rule was never get your fingers any closer than 3 inches of the blade. Now, that's a really good rule. When Tom wants to talk about safety, you really don't even want to get them 3 inches to the blade. Use push blocks. Use whatever you can. Grab it from the back side if you can and pull it through. If you're ripping something through, have a push block there. Don't say, oh, I can grab this corner here and, like making that veneer. You want to get that on through. Use a push block. It don't, everybody's got scrap wood laying around. So there's a lot. I have the saw stop table saw, and I have tripped it, but not because my fingers got close to the blade. I tripped it because I was cutting a piece of plastic that I thought was plastic, So maybe I should restate that. I was cutting a piece of signboard that I thought was plastic, but it had aluminum in it, had aluminum foil in it. And no sooner than I had an 8 foot long piece I'm going to rip on my table saw, and I didn't get a quarter of an inch in there, and bang, cost me a new aluminum block, a new blade, and clean out my pants. But so they tell me they're working on a bandsaw that will stop. But like I say, I've had more accidents. I've been working with a table saw since my dad had run me off of it at home. My dad ran a cabinet shop at home. I mean, I've been around flat woodworking all my life. And, I'd go out there, he'd be milking cows, and I'd sneak out in the shop and saw something. And I'd clean up, and he could always tell I'd been messing with his saw. I don't know how. I'd look at it. If I had a cell phone back then, I could have taken a picture of it and made sure I had it. But anyway, you got to respect those saws, any power tool. So, all right. Now, we got our third glue up. We're ready to turn it. And you go ahead and we don't have to get into detail of how to turn a bowl. No, one at a time. Never take it out of the chuck. Saw it off, bring it back to the lathe, tailstock, clamp it up, glue it up. Now, I had dowel pins. This wasn't hollowed then. It had about a 2.5 inch hole maybe in it. I had drilled down in it, but I had with a long 1/4 inch drill, I drilled through dowel pins in there, and I did them one at a time. And so that's probably got a day and a half of glue time, cutting and gluing to glue that up. This I did as a challenge from John Beaver. John made a bowl with 7 rings in it, sent me a picture of it. It went to the Smithsonian. I don't know, Smithsonian's got some kind of a wood art institute of some kind. Anyway, he's got a bowl in there about the size of that ginkgo bowl with 7 waves in it. So I made a vase with 7 waves, and that looked all right. And then I thought, actually, I guess I sent the 7 waves to John first. Then he sent me a picture of the 7 waves in his bowl. Then I made this with 9 waves. I can do more than 7. I did 9 waves. Thought I was doing all right. So about a month later, I get a text from him with a picture, and he made a vase with 17 waves in it. And I texted him back. I says, "You win, John." So, but they're fun. I just, I enjoy doing them. I just got to find an outlet for them, find people to buy them. But this one, this I made in my first class with him. This is all same piece of wood, cut off twice. Then we took this piece and went to a pedestal a sander, drum sander, not a drum sander, but a belt sander, and sanded that up. We made a pencil line on the top edge, kind of where we wanted that thickness to be, and we sanded that off by hand. And then had a lot of hand sanding in it, and got it reduced, and then painted it, and before I glued it back together, and then with a Q-tip, make sure you got all the glue off, and glued it back together. And then finished turning. We had material on the inside. We turned it and turned that step in and give it the optical illusion that it's got a step in it, but that's just turned in there and painted. Because of the essential tremors I've developed, I couldn't do that today. Because I'm just too shaky. But I thought it was a cool bowl. But the what? No veneer. No, that's all the same piece of wood. Just saw it off, sanded that area down, painted it, and then glued it together. And then, after that was dried, turned the inside and painted the inside a couple of coats of this Uh, that's kind of an expensive art paint made by something gold. I forget what's it has gold in its name, paint, but it doesn't have gold in it. All right, so oh yeah, we're going to talk about this a little bit more. I'll pass this around. I'm not going to point them out to you, but there are some spots in there where if you had a flashlight on the inside, you can see through it because the bandsaw waved a little bit. But I figure sitting at an art fair and some lady said, "Ooh, that's cool." I'm not going to show her what's wrong with it. David Ellsworth went David Ellsworth for a week, uh, 2020, I guess it was, and I had a nice bowl, and I started showing him what I thought was wrong with it, and he scolded me for showing him what was wrong with it. He says, "Don't ever point out your mistakes." I was trying to help other people improve by my mistakes. But we'll pass it around. Anybody want to look at any of the others, or you want to just wait and look at them later? So, don't take a flashlight to it. You can if you want. I don't care.
How much did your finish on that change the ginkgo color?
It got more of that yellow golden color to it. It was almost white. The light colored was almost white, and that's got about 7 coats of polyurethane. I've kind of settled on just wipe on poly. Seems to be a good, you know. Some of you guys mix up this special blend, and I don't know. When it's all said and done, just go to Menards. Menards is the place to buy your finishes. They always have fresh finishes, and it's the cheapest place in town to buy Watco oil or that's dye. Some, but not, no. Yeah, they have some common colors. Any other questions? I certainly enjoyed showing you my favorite thing to turn.